Ladies and gentlemen, the Western gaming industry is cooked, and China might be putting the last nail in the coffin, at least for the developers in this side of the gaming industry. And this is coming after another smash hit of Black Myth Wukong actually getting and engaging a mass amount of fan base across the whole world, achieving over $1 billion in a month. And this is just one of the games that have come out recently, and now we have another one, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, that is following in the footsteps of Black Myth Wukong, doing similar things that we saw before the release of that game. And I think this is a series of situations that we saw in the past few years within the Western games development sphere, where we have East Asian games dominating and overall taking a chokehold over the entirety of the industry, as the Western gaming developing industry lags behind because of its lack of creativity and its overall focus on progressive politics, which is the only thing video gamers have been asking the industry to do, is just focus on making creative games that gamers just like to play. And I think that's what we're seeing in East Asia in general, where they're just focused on the creativity and overall the cultural elements from within their own environment and actually placing it in the game and actually drawing in the overall interest of Western gamers. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing with Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, that is attracting a lot of gamers and building hype for this game overall. And similar to Black Myth Wukong, you see that in all the creative monsters and environments that have pushed within the game itself, and now it's drawing that social media hype towards this game. And you see the comments from game players relating to it, saying, oh, this looks fascinating, interesting, has creative looking monsters, has an overall gameplay aesthetic that we just don't see in Western gaming anymore. And I think that's playing to the emptiness in a lot of the recent games that have come out from Western game developers, where we just don't get that similar creativity. And now when a game comes out with that certain sense of creativity, it's going to get all the attention. We saw this with Black Myth Wukong a few months ago, where once it came out, it drew so much attention that it made over $1 billion. It sold over 30 million copies, and now it's establishing itself as an iconic game within the culture. And you see this reflected back in the interest in these new games coming out from China. And I think that's the situation we're seeing here with Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, where I'm seeing the hype build up for this game like none other game I've seen for the past few years. And this is reflecting on the basic state of the gaming industry as a whole, where if you create something that is slightly more interesting than a lot of games that have come out, you're going to build an audience and draw in people to your overall designs. And I think that's what we see with Wu Chang here, where we see these design figures and aesthetics that are just outwardly not seen in the Western games development sphere anymore. So once we see these aesthetically pleasing designs, we are attracted to it. And I think that's what's happening with gamers right now, where they're going, oh, someone's actually making something for me now, and now I can actually play it and enjoy it, and no one's going to criticize me for it. And this is the opposite of what we're seeing in the Western games development environment, where if you don't like what they put out, they accuse you of any ism in the book. And I think that's reflective of the state of affairs in America. You can just look at the overall criticism for Subnautica, a game that is coming out with much praise from the video gaming journalists and establishment media that actually back the modern day video gaming environment for a lot of these Western game developers, where they're supporting this game while the gamers themselves are giving this game a side eye, seeing the typical tropes that we see in the modern gaming world, where we have the same character profile, the same lack of creativity, and the massively downgraded appeal of the character designs that we always see in the modern gaming environment, where we get these kind of uglified looks, these overall aesthetically unpleasing looks that kind of push away the game players from actually giving your game a try, even though it may be good or not. But when you make something that is very aesthetically unpleasing to the eye, people are going to avoid it. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing with Subnautica now, where it's being trashed online. Of course, everyone trashing the game online are being accused of being every ism in the book. And this is just reflective of what we've seen in the game industry for the past 10 years now, where everyone is criticized if they criticize a developer for making a game that they don't want to play. And that's not how you draw in a customer base, by calling them names and trying to accuse them of being something that they're not. But back to those tropes. The trope I hate the most is just the typical the black character they have in the game. They give him the Killmonger cut. That look is played out, but we see it in almost every single game now. You could just compare it to Spider-Man 2, all these fighting games where we just have the same black character in every single game, where it's just getting tiring and annoying. You just want some variety, some change, something that actually looks different for once. But that is just the lack of creativity in the Western games development sphere showing itself up again. And It's giving a lot of leeway to all these East Asian developers to actually make something slightly more creative. It doesn't even have to be amazingly earth-shatteringly good, because Wu Chang Fallen Feathers has a similar Bloodborne type of from software appeal that we've seen before, but is still doing it at a high level, so we give it credit. And I think that's the situation we're seeing now with a lot of these games from East Asia. They just have to do something slightly better than the Western game developers, and it's gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars, because there's such a dearth and lack of supply of these type of games in the industry nowadays. So if you make something slightly good, it's gonna get that attention. And I think that's what China and all the game developers in East Asia are working on, where they can just make something that's slightly better than American games or European games, and they can get that attention because they're following basic marketing tactics where you make things look cool, look engaging, look fun, and you actually make a fun game. That is not the focus for Western game developers nowadays. Their focus is actually to send a political message to the gamers and make sure those gamers follow those political ideals, and that is just not what gaming is there for. We're there to have fun. We're there to experience a new world, a new fantastical environment, and actually just engage with our fantasies. And I think that's the thing that's missing in the Western games development sphere right now, where it's not even trying to engage the fan base or customer base anymore. It's trying to ridicule them and bully them into a political position that they don't really necessarily even want to think about. We're just trying to escape our modern day lives and just live in these games and just trying to break away from the everyday grind of society. But that is not what we're getting back from developers right now. They just want to pull us back in and re-engage us in society and kind of indoctrinate us into this philosophy that has no bearing on our lives. And I think that's the thing I'm tired of seeing in the gaming industry. I just want to just play a game, have some fun, and I think that's what we're getting with a lot of the East Asian developers right now, and they're winning big. We see what happened with a lot of the Korean developers, like with Stellar Blade and Shift Up and the First Ascendant. They're putting out games that people want to play, and they're getting that just reward with profitability and overall interest in their games. If you make a character that looks this good, people are going to play it even if the gameplay is subpar. But if you make a good game in general, you can make the ugly characters that you want. And I think that's the unfortunate thing that we're seeing in the gaming industry today, where the gameplay is just falling by the wayside. And I just hope a lot of developers just focus on honing down the skill sets and the overall necessary skills to actually produce content that we actually want to play. And I think we're getting most of that from East Asia, like Japan, Korea, and now China, with a lot of these games that have been coming out recently. And it's shocking to see the shift in the gaming industry in itself, because we've always seen Europe and America actually dominate the industry, and now that is reversing in such a way, in such a quick way, where we're seeing that table churn and everything maybe flip on its head now, where we're expecting the worst from American developers right now because we've seen the worst from them, and now we're expecting the best from Eastern developers because for the past 10 years we've seen the best. Outside of some of the censorship tactics from American consultancy firms, we've seen the best from Japan, Korea, and China when it comes to the development sphere. So I expect the best from them right now, and it's just crazy to see that reversal after these past 30 years in gaming, and seeing the domination of a lot of the Western game developers vanish into thin air and kind of obscured through these political progressive activist push that kind of have a stranglehold over the industry. Is the Western game development sphere cooked? I think that's probably the case, and probably China, Korea, and Japan are putting the final nails in the coffin for it. But maybe things will change. Who knows? We hear about people starting new studios. Maybe Elon Musk might buy a studio and change that overall dynamics. And of course, we still have strong developers in America that are still producing indie content and smaller AA content that is rivaling a lot of the things that we're seeing out of East Asia. So I'm still excited for the gaming industry. We're still going to see a lot of good games come out, but you tell me what you think about the situation. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think I'm spreading lies. You tell me what you think in the comments. This is Wagner Knows Why. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Talk to you next time.